Viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah, this vid is gonna hurt a lot, but I think it needs to be said. I think I've been waiting for the right moment for it, and you know what? With this week, it's time. And Judah Tribe, if you're watching this video, this is how you trash talk the Lions properly. So observe and enjoy the vid.
The Detroit Lions. Saying the name should be enough, but you know, 0-16. Your two greatest players in your history just up and quit. And of course, Matt Millen. Matt freaking Detroit Lions had a cheerleading group called the Detroit Pride, and they weren't allowed to use the team's colors or logos. However, I think the team did issue official brown bags for their heads. That has more to do with the team's play. I'm not saying the girls were busted, people. Ease up. The Lions did start an official squad in 2016 though. Yow. The Detroit Lions, who have played in every season uninterrupted since the Super Bowl started and has yet to even get close, as their only NFC Championship game appearance came in 1991, and they got crushed like the Terminator in a hydraulic press by the Redskins 41-10. And of course, they have suffered through an 0-16 season in 2008, and their recent play should be a valid reason for fans to claim short-term disability for the mental anguish they have caused. However, mathematically, the Lions are not the worst franchise in the history of the NFL. Detroit Lions, Martha Ford. Can you guess where someone with the last name of Ford who lives in Detroit got their money from? And this is the Ford Windstar of football plays. Leading 35-14 in the third quarter after Barry Sanders scored on a 45-yard TD. I guess the Lions decided to stop playing, or giving the ball to Barry, because the Skins had other ideas. They would score the last 20 points of the game, 17 in the fourth quarter, to win it in OT, 41-38. Barry Sanders, just another example of the thousands of times when his team let him down. Thousands of time. Many of these examples are team run cheats, but one player seems to stand out as the dirtiest I have ever seen. And Ndamukong Suh is a big, intimidating man. He doesn't need to cheat, but he does. Here is a short list of his antics. Stomped on Evan Dietrich Smith, kicked Matt Schaub in the groin, stepped on Aaron Rodgers' ankle. He has been fined over $230K. Opened in 2002, Ford Field is one of 7 dome stadiums in the NFL and was the famous site of Super Bowl XL, where Detroit native Jerome Bettis ended his career with the help of the refs. Ford Field was a huge upgrade from the dilapidated Pontiac Silverdome, which sat empty for years before being imploded. Twice. Bonus fact, the stadium features full-size living rooms in it that fans can replicate their at-home experience in while at the live game. That makes a lot of sense. Dan Reeves again was all over this blowout, as he not only caught 3 passes for 41 yards, but he rushed for 25 yards and 2 TDs, and also completed 2 passes for 43 yards. The Lions are the team to score the most points in their largest blowout at 13. Every cloud, right?
On a more positive note, the good news is I've been promoted. So, every cloud.
Not a team known for their winning or for their flair. The Lions have pretty drab, unassuming colors, including these all-gray jerseys, which are about as exciting as their team's performance has been this year. You want me to say more, but seriously, these unis are that boring. Next. With a haircut Anton Chigurh would be proud of, Rory has urinating tree-level prediction abilities.
You want to go undefeated? Rory predicts an undefeated season.
For the most part, he seems like a likable, big-headed mascot, kind of like the Lions QB. Here's a much more appropriate cat for how things are going in Detroit.
I don't think salty is the proper adjective. I think they have gotten hit over the head so many times by falling basalt stalactites that Lions fan has gone into a long-suffering coma of sports fan depression. If they are crying and hurt, it's the on the inside kind. I mean, you can't even pick on a Lions fan. God, you are depressing. Matt Patricia looks like he should be selling you essential oils and porn on VHS. Megatron and Barry Sanders retired early, but Matt Stafford seems to not get the hint. Oh wait, given your current situation of mediocrity, you actually don't want him to retire. I can't think of any other 10-year starter that has been to only one Pro Bowl and is winless in 3 playoff games. This Packer Hail Mary ought to piss you off. No, I meant this one. A cautionary tale of everything that can go wrong with the life cycle of a stadium. The Pontiac Silverdome is a microcosm of both Detroit and the Lions themselves. The site of Barry Sanders' electric moves and Super Bowl 16, the Dome Stadium featured a Teflon-coated fiberglass roof. Eventually, the Lions moved out in 2001 and the stadium fell into a bizarre abandonment. After sitting empty and many failed proposals, the stadium reopened in 2010. 3 years later, the roof collapsed, turning the venue into a nightmarish corpse. Finally, the stadium was demolished in 2017. Well, not exactly. After a second attempt, the stubborn eyesore fell. And after 2 years of demolition, it's now a pile of dirt. The bus stopped here after the Detroit native won Super Bowl 40 in his hometown, a game Seahawks fans never speak of. Ford Field is a large dome stadium in Detroit, and if it weren't for that roof, no way a cold weather city like the D gets the Super Bowl. The stadium actually has a warehouse in it where the Lions store their surplus sadness. Not a bad stadium at all, definitely in the above average. I guess at the time the Silverdome wasn't a bad choice for a Super Bowl. When it was built, it was much like the Metrodome and RCA Dome, sterile indoor stadiums with artificial turf. It wasn't until what happened afterwards to this place that made you wonder how the host of a Super Bowl could turn into something you would expect to see in Chernobyl. The sad fate of the place where the Niners defeated the Bengals is an empty dirt lot. Before the doomed Pontiac Silverdome would be built outside of the city of Detroit, in a town fittingly called Pontiac, the little city also wanted to lure the baseball team out of the big city. Their idea? Put the Lions and the Tigers right next to each other. And to save costs, let them share a roof? Yeah, this is their concept sketch from 1973 that included a mobile roof that would cover one venue at a time, or the parking lot. In 2018, Vivid Seats and NeoMam Studios re-rendered this proposal, and even in full color it looks ridiculous. What if it's raining and both teams want to play? Do the teams fight over the roof like siblings? The project ended up being too expensive, and the Tigers really were never down with moving 12 miles north of the city. After the Silverdome was used up and destroyed like an aging porn star, the Lions moved back to Detroit. Finally, the Lions beat the Packers at something. I guess the Ford family got Edsel syndrome after the Silverdome was built and erected this palace. A great piece of engineering was the use of open windows to allow natural light to illuminate the field, though the on-field play has been nothing but darkness. Lions fans savor this rating. You want to talk about brutal tanks that resulted in jack shit? Look no further than the Detroit Lions, whose model of ineptness is the perfect picture of what not to do. Following a 9-7 campaign in 2000, the Lions have served up 11 seasons of 6 wins or fewer, 15 losing seasons, and of course, an 0-16 campaign. All of that to bring in basically Matthew Stafford, Calvin Johnson, and Ndamukong Suh. Calvin retired because he saw through all the bullshit. Sue is kicked around from team to team, and Stafford has been put on Tank Island. Yes, they have had some upside. 3 playoff appearances, but all L's. You'd think a 105 and 198 record in a 19-year period would at least yield a playoff win, but nope, like drafting multiple first-round wide receiver busts, the tank is rolling on. It's simple. You go 0-16, you end up on this list. The fact that Rod Marinelli couldn't win a single game in 2008 with a team that had Calvin Johnson and Cliff Averill on either side of the ball is gross negligence, and proof that Marinelli's play calling was as good as you would expect from a defensive coordinator. Like Mercury Morris, Marinelli probably uncorked a bottle of Cooks when Hugh Jackson and the Browns went 0-16 in 2017.
There's one play that perfectly exhibits the ineptitude of the Detroit Lions in the back half of the 2000s. In 2008, the Detroit Lions became the first team in NFL history to finish a season with an 0-16 record. The Texans might be eyeing history too. Of course, that landed them Matthew Stafford with the first pick in 2009, and regardless of whether you think Stafford is a great quarterback or an okay one, he was certainly good enough to wade them out of deep waters. Somehow, though, it could have been worse. In 2007, the Lions picked Calvin Johnson second overall. One pick after Jamarcus Russell. If the Raiders had passed on Russell, would the Lions have snatched him up? But let's hear what Lions GM Matt Millen had to say about meeting with Jamarcus Russell. I kept talking to him. I asked him questions, and he looks at his watch, Millen said. I said, "You got someplace you need to be?" And he goes, "Oh, no. I'm sorry, sir." Okay, good to know. They weren't going to draft Russell, but it could have been worse. And the most shocking revelation in this video is that Jamarcus Russell was so dumb, Matt Millen was right about him. Back in 1961's, the Lions lost by 49 to who else? The 49ers. How fitting. The second largest blowout came just a year ago when the Buccaneers shellacked Detroit 47-7 on national TV. I guess not much has changed in 60 years.
I know there are some of you that have been waiting a long time for this. Don't worry, I've been hearing you. I was just waiting for the right time to strike. After pondering it though, I've come to an epiphany. The Lions don't need a moment for me to talk about them, for they are an eternal moment. They continually just exist. They're that kid. You know the one I'm talking about, the one that clings onto a social group but isn't really part of it. He doesn't really make a whole lot of noise to be noticed, but you're too nice to tell him to fuck off, so he just sits alone in a corner while you play video games. It's pure awkwardness, but amplify this for decades upon decades of ineptitude. It's not that you feel disgust or pity, you just don't feel anything. And it's insane regarding their past. I don't have to go into gruesome detail about their exploits. It would be far too depressing and or laughable to mention without any sort of trigger warning. I could mention all the failed draft picks, the inept coaches, the total incompetence of Matt Millen. Seriously, why the fuck did they hire him to be their GM to begin with? But that wouldn't be kosher to the unprotected ears of those watching. Then again, that's why you're here, aren't you? Why not mock their current situation? Let's go back to the 2017 season. The Lions were okay. That's the only thing I'm going to say about them. They weren't terrible, they weren't anywhere near a Super Bowl contender, they were just average. For a team that's been in a perpetual rebuild for about the last 25 years, this is a damning statement. I should just end the video here, but that's not fun to me. Neither is dealing with the mediocrity of Jim Caldwell. Once again, just okay as a head coach. That wasn't good enough for Detroit. Even with a 9-7 record, they blew several key games at the home stretch to miss the playoffs. I know a very surprising revelation regarding this team. To Detroit, they were on the cusp of something promising, but they didn't have the right guy leading the charge. Jim Caldwell, you can decay like most of the city's architecture in the background. Now they have a new identity, being a cheap imitation of far more relevant franchises. With their newest cow to be processed through the slaughterhouse, they went with a young defensive coordinator. And not just any coordinator, one from the New England Patriots. If you have any history of how their coordinators do as head coaches, it's fucking ghastly. Teams think that marinating underneath the controlling grasp of the hoodie will allow them to photosynthesize his skills, but they would be mistaken. The only one who hasn't been a complete disaster has been Bill O'Brien, and even then he's been on the hot seat so long his ass has permanent third-degree burns. If anything is so Detroit, their new head coach would immediately be put into the spotlight for rape allegations, because what's this city without any sort of executive corruption? I'll stop with the low-hanging fruit. What I won't stop hammering on is their newest identity of being a shameless copy of the Patriots, but without anything that makes that team good. It's the same mistakes that every other team makes when trying to take on their 4. Yes, hire one of their scouts to be your GM. Sure, let's conscript a bunch of their old players. Bring in LeGarrette Blount and Gronk. Wait, scratch Gronk, he'd rather retire than go to hell. The reality is they forget the 3 main ingredients that make New England successful: Belichick, Brady, and Kraft. Matt Patricia so far is far from a Belichick. If I remember correctly, a lot of Patriots fans wanted him fired in the early part of the 2017 season for their porous defense, but I'd say he rebounded nicely. Just enough to make his men harder and tougher by making them practice in the cold, when the Lions play in a dome, and bitching about the posture of a reporter when he's asking a question about a receiver who just got traded. Bitch, you look like a high school phys ed teacher that has a bottle of adult water sitting near his desk. You should be the last person to comment on someone's appearance. In fact, why are you always nitpicking journalists when you're allegedly always late for meetings? Whatever happened to Lombardi time? Am I supposed to be impressed that he's had an awful relationship with Matt Stafford so far? No, Stafford isn't Brady. He is never going to be Brady. The dude is a gunslinger you're trying to make into a short-range passer, and he ain't that. Not that I'm trying to defend the guy, but he is one of the best fantasy football quarterbacks in the NFL today. Yeah, I said fantasy. He's the kind of player where he'll look rather mediocre for the first 3 quarters of play. Then he'll throw a touchdown or 2 in garbage time to pad his stats and make him look better than what he is. Seriously, this guy can't beat quality opponents. People give Kirk Cousins shit for his record against teams over 500. Stafford has been significantly worse than him, and the Lions gave him $27 million a year in an act of utter delusion. I mean, he's serviceable, but would you call this guy an elite quarterback? Okay, maybe in Detroit's depressing world he's the best QB they've ever had, but other teams might want more. Although in his defense, I will say this. Have the Lions ever given him a decent offensive line? Or a good running game? I don't think they've had a great running back since Barry Sanders. They didn't have a 100-yard rusher in a game until Kerryon Johnson this past year. It had been almost half a decade since it last happened. Oh yeah, I forgot about the 2018 season. The Lions had hope for about 1 play. The pick 6 against Sam Darnold in week 1. Look at Quandre Diggs go. It's gonna be a great year as the Jets completely destroy you at home as Stafford's signals were deciphered by the opposition. I mean, there were some good times. Beating New England in your version of the Super Bowl. Watching as Mason Crosby shanked field goal after field goal to top of Green Bay self-destruction. Beating Miami, the most challenging of teams to defeat. At 3-3, the Lions fans were coming out of their plywood-laden caves to talk about the glories of 10-6. Seriously, only 10-6? You guys are pathetic. Just like the Lions who utterly collapsed and lost 7-9. For Detroit, this is just the cold, unforgiving reality of Windsor breathing down their necks. Patricia and his lust to make the Detroit Patriots handcuff the offense and turned into an uninspired retread. You know what would be great? Forcing your gunslinger to throw a bajillion screens on 3rd down for a team with poor O-linemen and blocking schemes. Sounds like a plan for disaster. When you lose to the goddamn Bills in an ugly game, there's a problem. No amount of benching not Tom Brady will turn you into Pygmalion, Matt. After such a disaster of a year, what is their plan, of course? Double down on skinning the Patriots alive. Trey Flowers, their top defensive end, signed to a ridiculous contract replacing Ezekiel Ansah. This big tight end out of Iowa looks just like Gronk, so they took him with a top 10 pick. Just like their old top 10 pick, Eric Ebron, who couldn't catch a cold until he fled this shithole last year. Funny how that works. Unlike their need for a white wide receiver to further imitate New England. I got it, Danny Amendola. He's old, injury-prone, and a poor man's Wes Welker. And he played for the Patriots, so he's perfect. In fact, the tight end that got fucked over against New England's available too. Jesse James, more like a weapon to aid our new offensive coordinator. Darrell Bevel, the genius that passed the ball on the 1-yard line. Lions fans think this is good? Oh, God. Does anyone understand why this team isn't taken seriously? It's like a teenager trying to chase all the popular trends but without any of the authenticity or passion. It makes sense since they've been run for decades by the incredibly incompetent Ford family. Let's just say if they ran their car business like this, they'd have to rely on government bailouts to get them out of it. Note how they've owned the team since the mid-1960s. Note how they have been mostly irrelevant since the time they started owning them. This isn't a coincidence. The Ford family has no idea how to run a football team and they haven't bothered to try learning. They let the wrong people take control and let them have the reins for way too goddamn long. Do you honestly expect an old woman in Martha Ford to turn into Margaret Thatcher and just start cleaning house? Fuck no, she's trying to enjoy whatever time she has left on this earth. Write all the puff pieces you want about how different she is from her late husband, I'll still have a hard time believing it. I'm not here to rub reality in your face because that's honestly doing it to you already. You have been nothing for decades. You are currently nothing. You will continue to be nothing. Whenever you somehow stumble into a playoff appearance, we merely think it will be a fluke as you get knocked out of the wildcard game in embarrassing fashion. Hell, NBC used your embarrassments to introduce shitty forced memes that didn't even use Impact or Comic Sans. This was somehow less cringeworthy than your team that day. The Lions are the goddamn Edsel, but produced every year. A disaster that people just look at in perplexity and disgust. For fuck's sake, the city can't even demolish their old building right. You'd think an area that has abandoned factories as plentiful as union workers would know how to do this, because they sure as hell know how to take down a football team every year. In fact, let's look at their legacy. You'd think the correct answer was already in your mind. 0-16. Well, you're wrong. They were one-upped in that category by a more aggressive suitor. The Browns not only did it with more pizzazz, but precision in 2017. You want to know what it truly is? Having not one, but two generational talents retire in their prime since this team is such a jizz stain they don't want to die in it. Not only that, but you also pissed them off to the point where they want nothing to do with you for years on end due to your self-imposed incompetence. You keep talking about loyalty and passion, but where the fuck is it? I see nothing but rear-ended Pintos for miles on end, and it won't end until the Ford family decides enough is enough and sells the team, which will most likely be to Dan Gilbert and create a new set of problems that they won't find a LeBron to bail them out of. They waste everything they touch. Hell, they don't even have to touch. Just looking at it will end their hopes and dreams. No, friends, the only reason why anyone knows who the fuck the Detroit Lions even are is Ninja. A fucking game streamer's childhood misfortune is the most relevant aspect of your organization today. Have I made my point yet? When a team only wins a playoff game once in over 60 years, I think there is some cynicism that is validated, no? And here's the most depressing fact of them all. The Lions are the best team Detroit has right now. You seriously think it's the Pistons? Yeah, their 14 straight playoff losses would like a word with you. The Red Wings have been trying to dig their way out of awful contracts for a few years now. And the Tigers? Any negative adjective I use won't be accurate enough. You really wanted this video? All I see is relentlessly beating a horse that's been dead for decades. In fact, I know the greatest punishment for a player come draft time.
Take him to Detroit. No! No, not Detroit! No! No, please! Anything but that! No!
Okay, I admit, maybe this vid went a little bit too overboard with what was said about the Lions and all their issues the last six decades. May have went a little bit too overboard, not gonna lie, but hey, I think this vid just gives a good idea, but I think you all get the point. I think this vid does a good idea of identifying all the real issues on the Lions front office and their franchise for the last 6 decades. And maybe this vid will show everyone that Matt Stafford was never the problem to begin with, and that the problems were always a lot deeper than that, and that Matt Stafford was just a band-aid that hid those wounds for 12 years until now. But hey, if there's one thing though that we can all mutually agree on, this trash talk vid on the Lions was a hell of a lot better than that garbage Judah Tribe has been spewing for so many years. Then again, with how trash Judah Tribe's trash talk vids on the Lions are, it doesn't take too much to be better than Judah. So, but yeah, that's a topic for another day. But hey, at least we got the Red Wings. But yeah, anyway, that'll wrap it up here. That'll wrap it up for the double hate week. So yeah, see you on whatever I make next. And that's going to wrap it up here. And by the way, Man Beast Morris, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for your response to my bet proposal. You taking it or leaving it? Your choice. Peace.